dear students. I hope you're doing well. And this time, we're going to tackle about the lessons for the pre-finals and final periods. Alright? So the first thing, the first lesson is what we call psychosocial learning theory. So from the title itself, class, from the word social, it's all about socializing. Alright? I know you know that. It's all about socializing. It's all about giving time and space to another person, interaction, being active in a community, alright, in a society, okay? So, in this theory class, we are going to learn the stages. Right? According to Erickson, there are 8 stages in the socializing development of the child. From infancy, from birth, to what? To adulthood. Alright. So, bakit napaka-importante for us to learn this psychosocial learning theory? It is very important because as a teacher and as a future educators, we have a great role in this part. The question is, how are we going to what? How are we going to bring a psychosocial learning into a classroom wherein yung mga bata, our students, will feel loved and cared and being happy in learning. Alright? Hindi sila ma-intimidate sa kaklase nila, or let's say hindi sila matatakot in learning. For example, ano yung mga bad things or mga fear things ba sa classroom? In what? I know you know this. Recitation. Right? Kasi why? Yung maisip ng mga bata is, ay, mali yung sagot ko. Baka mali yung sagot ko. Natakot ako. Baka mapagalitan ni teacher. So, no, that's a big no. So, dito sa lesson ito class, we're also going to learn how to apply these things, the stages, this theory in a classroom. Alright? Okay. So, who is Erickson? Eric Homburger Erickson, he is a German-American developmental psychologist and psychoanalyst who was most well known for his theory on psychological development of human beings known as the psychosocial development theory. So in psychosocial development, hold to the idea that an individual's personality developed in a series of stages. Pag sinabi nating series class, pasunod-sunod yan siya class, alright? So ito yung sinasabi nating 8 stages ni Erickson. Erickson's theory described the impact of social experience across the whole lifespan of a person from infancy to adulthood. So dito rin class, matutunan natin, malalaman natin what is the impact. The impact of socializing to our environment. The impact of socializing with other people, to humankind, to the animals, and so on. Alright? Okay. Erickson's psychological stages of development focus on the resolution of different crises to become a successful and complete person. In psychosocial stages of development ni Erickson, there is what we call also the too much of negative and too much of positive, or too little of negative and too little of positive. And meron tayong tinatawag din na virtue, the balance of the two. Alright? So, ano nga ba? What are those resolution ba on each different crisis to become a successful and a complete person? We're going to learn that one. In psychosocial theory class, we propose that we are motivated by a need to achieve competence in a certain areas of our lives. Of course. We're going to learn that one also. Alright, so before through, let's learn the 2 principles, the basic principles of Erickson's in psychosocial development theory. First is we have epigenetic principle, refers to the idea that development progresses through a series of interrelated stages. Ito yung 8 stages class. And that each stage has a critical period of development. Alright, so yung sinasabi natin critical period of development, ito yung Pag sumobra ba ng love, or pag sumobra ba ng, sabihin natin, pag sumobra ba ng love, hindi ba ako masasaktan? Char, hindi biro lang. Something like that. But when we say psychosocial crisis, it refers to the turning points or a conflict between opposing psychological qualities. Pag sinabi natin psychosocial crisis class, ibig sabihin there is something wrong on how you interact with other people. Let's say, masyado kang mahiyain to respond with when you are being asked, or masyado kang mahangin when you respond to the question. Okay? Something like that. Now, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, class. Yung too little and too much, that's what they called malignancy versus maladaptation. Malignancy, class, if this is a too little of the positive and too much of the negative aspects. Alright? So, for example, a person cannot trust other people, or let's say there is a trust issues. Alright? Again, too little of positive and too much of negative. However, maladaptation involves too much of the positive and too little of the negative. Ito nang papasok yung masyado kang mag-trust. Alright? You trust too much. Kahit magnanakaw, I trust you, hindi mo ko nanakawan. Something like that. Okay? Alright, so let's watch this 8 stages of psychological development of Erickson. Okay.
Erickson's theory of psychosocial development identifies 8 stages which a healthy individual should pass through from birth to death. At each stage, we encounter different needs, ask new questions, and meet people who influence our behavior and learning. Stage 1. Basic trust versus mistrust. As infants, we ask ourselves if we can trust the world, and we wonder if it's safe. We learn that if we can trust someone now, we can also trust others in the future. If we experience fear, we develop doubt and mistrust. The key to our development is our mother. Stage 2. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. In our early childhood, we experience ourselves and discover our body. We ask, is it okay to be me? If we are allowed to discover ourselves, then we develop self-confidence. If we are not, we can develop shame and self-doubt. Both parents now play a major role. Stage 3. Initiative versus guilt. In preschool, we take initiative, try out new things, and learn basic principles like how round things roll. We ask, is it okay for me to do what I do? If we are encouraged, we can follow our interests. If we are held back or told that what we do is silly, we can develop guilt. We are now learning from the entire family. Stage 4. Industry versus inferiority. Now we discover our own interests and realize that we are different from others. We want to show that we can do things right. We ask if we can make it in this world. If we receive recognition from our teachers or peers, we become industrious, which is another word for hard-working. If we get too much negative feedback, we start to feel inferior and lose motivation. Our neighbors and schools now influence us the most. Stage 5. Identity versus role confusion. During adolescence, we learn that we have different social roles. We are friends, students, children, and citizens. Many experience an identity crisis. If our parents now allow us to go out and explore, we can find identity. If they push us to conform to their views, we can face role confusion and feel lost. Key to our learning are our peers and role models. Stage 6. Intimacy versus isolation. As young adults, we slowly understand who we are, and we start to let go of the relationships we had built earlier in order to fit in. We ask ourselves if we can love. If we can make a long-term commitment, we are confident and happy. If we cannot form intimate relationships, we might end up feeling isolated and lonely. Our friends and partners are now central to our development. Stage 7. Generativity versus stagnation. When we reach our 40s, we become comfortable, use our leisure time creatively, and maybe begin contributing to society. Our concern is generativity. If we think that we are able to lead the next generation into this world, we are happy. If we did not resolve some conflicts earlier, we can become pessimistic and experience stagnation. People at home and at work are now who influences them most. Stage 8. Ego integrity versus despair. As we grow older, we tend to slow down and begin to look back over our lives. We ask, how have I done? If we think we did well, we develop feelings of contentment and integrity. If not, we can experience despair and become grumpy and bitter. Time to compare us with mankind. Erickson was a German-American psychologist who, together with his wife Joan, became known for his work on psychosocial development. He was influenced by Sigmund and Anna Freud and became famous for coining the phrase identity crisis. Although Erickson lacked even a bachelor's degree, he served as a professor at Harvard and Yale. This video was made for us by MinuteVideos.com, who are doing everything to make awesome videos affordable.
But a psychosocial development of Erickson's theory. Alright, I hope you learned something from it. Okay, so now let's go through the first one. Trust versus mistrust. From infancy, birth to 18 months old. Alright, so during this time, the person who has a major role here is our mother. Alright, is our mother. Why? Because we all know naman, for example, we all know na our mother is the first person that we really trust the most. Alright, the first person that we trust is our mother, our parents. Alright, kasi if our parents are we are being loved and cared of and fed, alright, we develop trust. Alright, to develop trust, and sometimes we think that is all of the people or lahat pa ng tao sa mundo is just like my mother, whom I can trust with. Right? That is trust. But when we talk about mistrust, right, there are times na our parents are abusive. There are parents na very abusive, or let's say they are nannies or yaya that are that are very abusive. So dito yung the child will develop a trust issue. There's a mistrust, or the child will think that all of the people in the world are just like with my mother or with my nanny, just like my parents, that's very abusive. So there is something, a bad thing also with that, right? But if there is what we call na balance, there is a balance, right? There's a balance with this trust and mistrust is what we call the hope. Why? Paano napasok si hope? Because since the child will develop trust, and sometimes if there is something wrong that happened, the child will still be hopeful that there is something good will happen despite of the bad thing. Alright? So, yeah, that's what we call the hope or the virtue. Okay? But let's talk about the maladaptation. If there is overly trust, that's what we call sensory maladjustment. For example, overly trust. Alam mong magnanakaw, o pinagkakatiwalaan kita, hindi mo ko nanakawan, pero nanakawan ka naman. So that's what they call overly trust. Kahit alam mo na masasaktan ka, or kahit alam mo there's something wrong, or kahit sabihin natin hindi mo alam na there's something wrong, so thinking mo na lang na I trust this guy because he's my friend. But sinaktan ka pa rin, or niloko ka, or triniter ka, or something like that. So merong negative impact. There's a negative impact. But meron namang too much mistrust. Alright? Meron tayong tinatawag na withdrawal, depression, nade-depress yung bata, paranoia, naging paranoid yung bata. Kasi huwag mo kong lapitan. Kahit maganda naman yung intention mo, natatakot siya. Kasi, ang iniisip ng bata is what? Sasaktan mo lang ako. Alright? It's either physically or emotionally. There's a mistrust. Alright? Or possibly psychosis or what we call schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a mental illness na thinking too much negative of mistrust. Thinking too much mistrust na lahat ng tao, kahit si presidente o nanay mo o yung kapatid mo is what? Sasaktan ka lang nila. Or there's a tendency that they will be abusive sa'yo. Alright? Just like what I've said, there is hope if balance yung trust and mistrust. If okay yung pag-care ng parents mo, yung family mo, there is hope. Alright? Kumbaga, there's a positive learning sa development ng isang bata. Alright? So that is very important, class. When we are a child, if you're pamangkin, kinakailangan na aware yung parents mo na kinakailangan i-develop yung trust or the mistrust. Dapat i-balance. I-balance nila yan. Alright? Kasi sabihin natin, if you would still remember, just like my mother, she always told me na, you can trust, but do not put too much trust. Learn to know or learn to study, analyze the person if you can trust that person or not. Okay? So, balance. Balance na. Right? So, now let's go to stage 2. Sandali. Excuse ko na yung magandang mukha ko dyan. Char! Alright, so stage 2, we have autonomy versus shame and doubt. So, it starts with the toddler or early childhood year to 18 months to 3 years old. Alright, so dito, class, the parents who allow their toddlers to explore their surroundings and develop interest on their own help to foster a sense of autonomy. Alright, the child has an opportunity to build self-esteem, distinguishing right from wrong, and autonomy as he or she learns new skills such as putting on clothes, and shoes, playing with toys, eat food using spoon and fork, and so on. Such skills illustrate the child's growing sense of independence and autonomy. So dito naman, class, the child developed the word what we call being independent. Okay? Yung bata will learn to for example, to walk on his own, on his or her own, away sa mother niya. Kasi minsan sinasabi ng bata, kaya ko to, mommy, I can do this. I'm a big boy na, I'm a big girl na. Alright? So, pag lalaki, minsan nadadapa pa. At least, diba? Let's just let the child to do some stuff on his own. But do not let them na sila na lang, na hindi mo nag-guide. You really have to guide pa rin sila. Alright? Kasi, pag balance yan siya, class, meron tayong tinatawag na, hold on. Pag balance yan siya, class, meron tayong tinatawag na willpower and determination. Alright? Kasi, class, on this stage, for example, kasi dito sa stage na to, sa years na to ng bata, they will learn how to choose or they will learn to choose the clothes na gusto nila, toys na gusto nila, or they want to learn how to use spoon and fork when they eat kahit na puro labas, hindi pumasok sa bibig. Gusto pa rin na matutunan yan. If you can still remember, kahit kayo rin naman before, di ba? Or if you have pamangkin, you can observe your pamangkin on what stage na ba siya. Stage 2 na ba si pamangkin? Or na-advance si pamangkin sa stage 4? Or what? Right? Something like that. Okay. Kasi from that, if the child is well-cared, class, it will develop na autonomy, independent. Pag sabi natin autonomy, that he is very sure of what he is doing. That he knows what is right from wrong, and what is wrong to right. Alright? Something like that. But if the parent is too much, alright, let's say, too much controlling sa mga bata, that will lead to what? Shame and doubt. They're going to doubt themselves. The child will doubt his or herself na, I cannot do this. Something like that. So parang pangit. Wag naman, okay, parang pangit. It should be balanced. Alright? It should be balance na mayroong matutunan yung mga bata. Ma-develop yung autonomy na tinatawag natin sa stage 2 na to. Alright? Okay. So, as cited by Cherry in 2018 class, Erickson believed that toilet training was a vital part of this process during this stage. Why? If you can remember, di ba, when we were a toddler, meron tayong toilet, mini toilet na para sa atin lang. Or yung kahit, hindi ko alam kung anong ginagamit ng ibang parents in toilet training. Alright? Kasi, why? Why it is very vital part? Why? Kasi kinakailangan na, Erickson's believe that the child should develop a self-control, a feeling of self-control and a sense of independence. Self-control in terms of Wee-wee, and pupoops. Kasi pag hindi tayo ng toilet training class, what will happen sa ating stage ngayon? Malaki na kayo nag-ihi pa kayo sa banig. Malaki na kayo nag-pupo pa kayo sa higaan. So that is very kind of a shame. Alright? Kind of a shame. Alright? If you can remember, I don't know sa iyong part, paano ba yung pag-motivate ng parents niyo na hindi kayo mag-ihi sa gabi sa higaan niyo? Ano yung motivation nila if you can remember? Yung sa akin before, meron akong chicken joy. Chicken joy or spaghetti. Pag hindi ako makaihi sa higaan, that is a good job done. Alright? So, natututo tayong self-control dito class and being independent at this stage. So, kinakailangan pala dapat 2 years old or to 3 years old, kinakailangan na matuto yung bata na natawag na autonomy. Do not be too much. Alright? According to David in 2014, considered this stage as time of the terrible twos. Ano yun siya? We have defiance, temper tantrums, and stubbornness. Yes! Sometimes, pag hindi mabigay sa bata yung gusto niya, iyak yun siya, magtatantrums yun siya. Or, pag yung anak, if the child is too busy playing with his or her toys, magiging stubborn na siya kahit meal time na, kainan na, ayaw niya pa rin kumain. Or let's say, kahit time ng paggawa ng assignment, since gusto niya pa maglaro, hindi siya gagawa ng assignment. Stubbornness, alright? So, kinakailangan na balance lang tayo dyan. Alright? Okay, so ito nagsasabi ko kanina, sometimes the feeling of shame and low self-esteem occur during an inability or inadequacy to learn certain skills. So it's very important, class, to remember to let the child to go on his own. Alright? But with guidance. You have to guide. Pero wag naman yung guidance na parang, ay, stop, huwag mong gawin yan. No, that's a very big no. Alright? Let the child do the stuff. If there's something wrong, turuan. And then after you teach, let them. Just like sa classroom. For example, if there is an activity na hindi, parang ambiguous ng bata, but at least they tried to do that, pero there's something wrong, teach them. Right? You have to teach them. And afterwards, after you teach them, let them do the job. Let them do the experimentation or their group activity. Right? So there is, a sense of willpower and determination sa mga bata. Okay. Alright? So, yun yung virtue. Pag na-balance yung maladaptation tsaka malignancy class, yung mga bata at this stage, they will develop what we call willpower and determination. They will have the eagerness or the determination to do things despite of the negative things happen. Okay? So, just like that. So, sa maladaptation class, impulsiveness. Alright? Shameless willfulness that leads you to jump into things without proper consideration of your abilities. For example, hindi mo alam kung malalim yung pool, yung tubig sa pool. Ikaw, alam mo sa sarili mo na hindi ka ganun ka magaling lumangoy. And then you just jump off to that water. What would happen to you? There's a possibility na either if you survive or malulunod ka. That's what we call impulsiveness. Okay? Maladaptation. Maladaptation is what we call too much of the positive. Masyadong masyadong kampante. Alright? Masyadong kampante, kaya ko to, no matter what happened. That is, that is a bad thing also. Kasi pag ganun class, you will just bring yourself into danger. Ikaw mismo magdadala sa sarili mo sa kapahamakan. Alright? That is a negative thing also. But, if there's a malignancy, too much, alright? Too much of negative and there's too little of positive. Meron din tinatawag na compulsiveness. Feel as if their entire being right in everything they do, so everything must be done perfectly. Inisip lang na, ay, tama itong ginagawa ko as long as they are just following the rules precisely. Parang pangit naman. Diba? Kinakailangan pa rin na balance. Alright? Okay, so that is the stage 2 class. So now let's go through with the stage 3. In the stage 3 class, initiative versus guilt. Preschooler, 3 to 6 years old. Once children reach the preschool stage, ages 3 to 6 years old, they are capable of initiating activities and asserting control over their world through social interactions and play. Yes, take note of the term initiating activities. They like to do things that they wanted to. Dito na yung time na while they do the initiating part because they're curious. They're curious, what will happen if I put the square shape sa circle? Ano mangyayari? Alright, something like that. The child here, at the 3 to 6 years old, they're very curious of all the things that within their environment, alright, sa paligid nila, and sometimes they do the initiative in doing the task, in doing the activity. Something like that. But if there's too much, alright, there's too much, my dear students, or let's say, over-controlling parents, dito madidevelop yung guilt ng mga bata. Guilt on themselves, thinking na they cannot, they cannot do the things. Alright? They cannot do the things. Alright? Kasi, on this stage class, they will what? They will explore. Just like what I've said, they are very curious about things around them. Alright? And from that class, if there's a well-balanced or if the child at this stage is well cared of, they will build a self-confidence sa sarili nila. Right? It will build a self-confidence sa sarili nila. And they will feel a sense of purpose. Right? Feel a sense of purpose of what they're doing. Okay? Alright, so that is the initiative versus the guilt. According to MacLeod in 2013 class, a healthy balance between the initiative and guilt is necessary. Success in this stage will lead to the virtue of purpose. Okay, purpose, knowing the purpose, knowing knowing the purpose of why you're doing this and that. Alright, so what are the malignancy and the maladaptation? Here's what we call ruthlessness, being heartless or unfeeling or being without mercy. Oh. Alright, so what's that? Ruthlessness class, let's say, or if there's an extreme term of ruthlessness is what we call sociopathy. sociopathy. Extreme form of ruthlessness, sociopathy. Wala siyang pakialam, alright? Kasi since too much initiative ito sa class, too much initiative, thinking na no matter what he or she's doing, it's okay, right? It's okay. Kahit sometimes meron for example sa job, kung meron na siyang inaatapakan ng tao or basta ganun siya class, alright? Parang meron na silang nasaktan na person, they're still doing the job, they're still doing the activity without thinking, without mercy, without thinking without thinking what will be the feelings of the other people. Ganun yun siya, ruthlessness, right? Just thinking na ito gawin ko kasi ito yung gusto kong gawin, which is very wrong. Okay? Which is very wrong sa class. Alright? But on the other hand, we have what we call inhibition. Sa inhibition naman, a person will not try things because nothing ventured, nothing lost, nothing to feel guilty about. Ito yung sinasabi natin na sakto lang. Or let's say, too much contentment. Parang sasabi na, basta makakain ako 3 beses sa isang araw, okay na yon. That's what we call inhibition. Kumbaga, not pursuing things. Kasi parang hindi naman siya takot or what ba. Alright, siya takot. Okay? Alright, because a person that is an inhibition type of person, they're afraid to start and take a lead on a project. They have the fear. Right? They have the fear kasi. Kaya nga sinabi ko kanina feeling of contentment. Because they have the fear na maybe there's pag ginawa nila tong project na to, hindi nila maabot yung what they call, maabot yung gusto ng boss ko. Alright? Di ko maabot yung level. Ano yung term yun? Nakakalimutan ko yung term. Okay, basta hindi ko maabot yung gusto or yung point na gusto ng boss ko. Something like that. Right? Because they have the fear of doing things. Okay? But if it is balanced, meron tayong tinatawag na courage. Courage of doing things. Alright? Just like that. So that is the stage 3 class. The stage 3. Alright. Now, let's talk about the stage 4. Excuse me. So stage 4 class, isa muna. So stage 4 class is we have industry versus inferiority. Alright? Industry versus inferiority. Children begin to compare themselves with peers to see how they measure up. They are capable of learning, creating, inventing, and accomplishing numerous new skills and knowledge, thus developing a sense of industry. They either develop a sense of pride and accomplishment in their schoolwork, sports, social activities, and family life. And according to excuse me. According to Te and Macapagal, in 2007, a child who is able to develop his skills and discover what he can do more will lead to a sense of competence and motivation. Alright. So if you can remember kanina sa video kanina, the child will compare themselves to their peers, to other people, to their friends, or let's say, sometimes may tinatawag na, bakit ang ganda naman ng buhok niya? Bakit ang ganda ng buhok niya sa akin? Hindi. Something like that. The child will compare themselves. Sometimes physical appearance. They will compare the hair, the skin, alright, the eyes, the shape of the mouth, and so on. But on the other hand, on this stage, they are capable of learning new things. They are very creative. They will learn being creative on this part. They will invent something and accomplish a certain activity. Alright? And if this industry is well developed to this child at 6 to 12 years old, they will able to develop the skills and discover what he can do more. Will lead to a sense of competence and motivation. Ito yung tinatawag natin na a competitive individual. Bakit? Why? Because a person does know how to cook. A child know how to dance, to sing, to do some sports, or to act. Alright? Okay? Or to act. So, kaya, that's what we call the sense of competence and motivation. Okay? Because in this stage, they will They are learning a lot of new things, a lot of new skills at this stage. Kaya nga, class, meron tayong tinatawag, diba? If you can go back before lockdown, meron tayong mga workshops, seminar workshops, painting, singing, dancing, playing instruments. Because at this stage class, 6 to 12 years old, this is a crucial part na merong matutunan na ang mga bata. Kasi ito yung part na they are eager to learn something new skills. At this stage, they will think na, paano ba gawin yung paint na yan? I would like to learn that paint. And you can enroll your child to a workshops. Alright? Again, like what I've said, at this stage, in 6 to 12 years old, they are eager to learn something new skills. And it is very important here at this stage, teachers or parents will let the students or will give an opportunity to the students to to learn, to acquire skills, to learn skills. Alright? It's either sketching, drawing, singing, dancing, acting, or sports. It is very important. Okay? So, but if there's a maladaptation version class, meron tayong tinatawag na narrow virtuosity. Children who aren't allowed to be children. Why? Anong meron dyan? Ibig sabihin ng class, the parents are too strict. Let's say, for example, there is a type of parents na academic lamang sila. But yung anak nila, the child wants to learn soccer. Or let's say, they want to learn to play chess. Pero yung parents is very focused on one thing, academic, knowledge. Alright? So, ibig sabihin dito na class, in narrow virtuosity, there is no freedom. The child has no freedom to choose or to learn or to acquire new skills. Because the over-controlling parents. Alright? The over-controlling guardians. Which is not good. Okay? Which is not good. Because sometimes, if the child grows up, if the child grows up, maisip niya na feeling of regret ba? Bakit? Sana kung natutunan ko mag-paint before when I was a child, siguro magaling din ako mag-paint ngayon. That is, let's say, crucial part na feel ng bata paglaki niya. Alright? So, which is not good siya, class. Okay? On the other hand, we have what we call malignancy, inertia, who suffer from inferiority complexes. So, when we say inferiority complexes, class, for example, if at first you don't succeed, don't ever try again. Ano meron doon? Or that is according to Alfred Adler, many of us, for example, many of us didn't do well in mathematics. Okay. For example, sometimes there are teachers, for example, let's put an example, teacher na hindi marunong mag-motivate sa mga bata. For example, the student is hindi nanalo sa contest ng math technique, right? Pero hindi siya nanalo sa contest ng math. And then third placer lang siya. Instead of yung goal is champion. But then there is this teacher na hindi na tayo sasali sa contest next year kasi natatalo rin naman tayo. That's what we call, that's the time the child will suffer from what we call inferiority complexes. Mafe-feel unmotivated yung bata, which is very not correct. It's very wrong. It's very wrong. Right? So, ano kailangan gawin natin teachers or parents? We should what? Or let's say, kahit na third placer lamang yung bata, we still cheer up, right? We still have to cheer up our students, the child, that it's okay, you did a great job. Tap at the shoulder, you did a great job. We can still make bawi next year. We're going to study very hard. We're going to research more formulas, right? That's what we call motivation, cheering up the child na hindi maging feeling down. Kasi ano bang mangyayari pag ma-feeling down yung bata? There's a possibility na there's a negative impact. There's negative impact sa bata. Mafe-feeling down siya, mag-depress pa siya, baka ma-suicide. Yun yung dapat nating malaking pag-iiwasan talaga. Alright? Okay, another example is hindi marunong yung bata mag-basketball. For example, sa PE. Sa PE, hindi marunong mag-basketball yung bata. And then, sabihin ng PE teacher, huwag ka na maglaro kasi hindi ka man marunong mag-basketball. Which is very wrong. May kailangan na i-cheer up yung bata. Hayaan mo na! For example, hayaan mo na hindi ka marunong mag-play ng basketball, go ka lang sa gitna ng court and then try mo mag-dribble, magpasa ng bola, try mo mag-shoot, go lang ng go. Alright? Dapat ganon. Cheering up, motivating. Alright? Kasi if there's a balance between the maladaptation and malignancy, or let's say, if there's a balance between the industry and inferiority, my dear students, we have what we call competency. Just like what I've said earlier, meron tayong tinatawag na competitive person. Magaling siya sa academic, magaling din siya sa sports, sa arts, something like that. Okay? Or let's say, kahit matalo siya sa isang contest, or kahit hindi siya marunong sa isang bagay, sa isang skills, they will what? They will strive hard, right? it's just in ano lang, in a sense of being ito, supportive. It's really important talaga. Hindi mo malalaman yung great impact mo pala sa isang tao if you are very supportive sa bagay na yun. Basta, mabuting bagay lamang. Okay? Alright, so before we go through the stage 5, my dear students, let's cut this and we're going to continue on the next video. Adios! Bye-bye!